Martial arts, karate, I bust you down like Itachi, cause you legitimately Hachi. Straight kamikaze, I'm talking to bodies as I go straight brawly. Y'all niggas could hardly be me, I'm not part of the sea. I'm part on the sea like Moses. No psychosis or hocus pocus. I put importance to stay focused. Ignore all the BS on my timeline, I throw a lifeline for those thinking I ain't about mine. Hit you upside your head with a tie iron. Can't be your time if it's my time. The set to be patient, I'm patiently waiting. It's driving me crazy, cause lately the odds that I'm facing is basic and basically tragically hating. Anticipating my fall, they want it all for themselves. So I make the call, no need to stall. I go and get them all off of the shelf. I take affirmative action, I'm blasting and laughing of how you reacting to my satisfaction of cashing injections and Benjis and Wilsons. The life that you always imagined. Brother from the goal, yeah. If you ever see him go, it's Holocaust or Holy Ghost. Overcome or overflow, yeah. Either way it's overdose. Watch you walk or comatose, penetrating to your soul, yeah. Tit for tat and toe for toe, pound for pound and blow for blow. You would never see me fold, nah. Claiming that what you don't know, that is how you get exposed. Left it there with bullet holes.
Leave it alone, promises all day.
Yo, that go hard. That intro go hard. Not necessarily the video. That was me just putting stuff together, but that song for sure go hard. This is like a last minute decision I made. I'm like, I'm just gonna go live and touch on this right quick. Seeing that, every other form of trying to discuss this was like limiting me to like the amount of time I had to like really approach what I wanted to talk about, or even before that, the notion of even trying to like tweet back to these responses. The characters, you're so limited to what you can say, and I'm not about to like do a bunch of threads just to like respond. So I figured I'd just go live real quick, share my thoughts about this narrative that's being pitched out there right now at the moment, and just kind of discuss on it. And what I will say though too is for anybody who has anything to touch on with that, you can, well, one, you can comment in this video alone if you'd like and share your thoughts. But two, you can also DM me if you follow me on Twitter, and let me know if you guys like want to. Not right now, I do have things to do, so that's why this is like a quick live video. But DM me so we can set something up where we can maybe even discuss this going forward, and your voice can also be heard on the matter, whichever side you stand on, whatever it is you believe to be true when it comes to this whole notion. But here it is. We're going to discuss it. I don't have any banner set up, so just follow me here. Today I'm on Twitter, and I see that there's this narrative being painted that because The Rock claimed that his whole thing is that he wants to face Superman, that means that the notion of the Justice League facing off Darkseid can no longer be, and that anybody who I guess is excited for this means that they have given up on the idea of seeing the Justice League face off Darkseid, or Zack Snyder coming back, period, I guess. Which I just thought was a weird narrative to put out there, because it's mostly, opinionated for sure, more than it is factual. And that's why, like, for me, it's like, again, if that's what if that's your opinion, and you guys like want to share your piece about that, by all means, you can put it in the comments if you'd like, or like I said, DM me and we can set something up where we can discuss this in the near future. But what I will say though is these were pretty much like the thread that I was engaged in today that I saw, and from respect the people that I for some I respect and have love towards. So it's no ill will. Some I don't even follow or know. Actually, I think the original thread was someone I don't follow or know. But again, they were pushing this narrative of if Black Adam versus Superman is a thing now, that somehow makes the Justice League versus Darkseid an obsolete thing, right? And obviously, to me, it's like, well, where are you getting this narrative from? Where is this a thing? Like, how come you feel that this is the truth? And what I mean by that is, like, if WBD is not officially saying that, then you can't state that as a fact, is my whole point. if if The Rock, who I guess was to what this notion originally came from, if he didn't state that, then why are you assuming this to be so, right? So I posed those questions, because again, it didn't the narrative just doesn't make sense to me, especially when I'm hearing the opposite, from the interview, um, and it's about listening to the fans, right? And you can't, I feel like you can't dismiss the fact that there are things that have been occurring that prove they have been listening to the fans. I don't think it's necessarily everything we want to, I guess, hear, in essence of like the fact that they haven't came out and said, like, obviously I know the biggest anticipation I think we all want to hear for sure, right? Is what I here we go. What's on this hat, right? And that's restore the Snyderverse. That's what we want to hear. We want to hear Zack is back. He's gonna finish Justice League, 2 and 3, and his story arc is going to be complete. And I guess it seems like the hardest thing where a few are having a hard time with is how can that happen when I guess these other events are happening? Does it happen before, or I don't know? It's like there's this lack of even possibility that like maybe these things that are of these movies we're getting are going to occur after the fact. But nonetheless, um, you know, to me, I couldn't understand where the narrative was coming from. So I posed the question. And a few of my homies they responded back, and again, these are guys I have respect for. So there's no ill will for me personally with how they feel and their opinions. Um, but I definitely don't agree. I don't think the responses hold the way they think that it does, right? Um, so I guess to address the first thing, was that this idea that I guess Zack Snyder's Justice League is not what's canon, to the I guess to the overall DCEU, which again that notion for me only stuck and would only hold merit if the people who spoke that were still there running the show, and they're not. And that's the obvious, for me personally, right? Like, these guys are all out as far as we know. So that shouldn't really be a thing, right? Like, as far as like what's been said officially on record, uh, those guys that spoke that language are now out of the building. And then I'm seeing the signs of things that kind of follow after that, and how I feel, you know, certain moves that are being made show the intentions of some other plan than what they had planned. Um, I think it would be kind of, you know, no disrespect, but foolish to think that just because they're out, all these other movies that were lined up, like Aquaman 2, The Flash, Black Adam, that they were all of a sudden supposed to like, oh, let's not put those out anymore, considering that 2 out of the 3 were pretty much already done. Um, and uh and then one's already uh was already in the process of, I guess, being shot, or being they're in the process of shooting it. And these are movies that I think, regardless of how you feel about it, they are going to generate revenue, or money and profits for them. So like that wouldn't make sense to stop them or say they're not happening. But what you can do, and what the information that's coming out of what they are trying to do, is they did reshoots and trying to fix certain things so that they can do the best that they can do. And what I'm saying is important. They can do the best that they can do with what they already had to try and make it all connect. That saying, I can understand why certain things may appear to be worrisome, so to speak, or lack of a better, or not a lack of a better word, but I think the true nature is that, yeah, I think some of these things, the hardest pill to swallow is that it's gonna lack true connection to make it make sense. Some things I think we're just gonna have to swallow, uh, you know, so that they can still move forward with it connecting, and some of it's gonna be like, huh? But like, I don't think that should concern any. Well, not that it shouldn't. My whole thing is like, I can understand if that's the issue, but I feel like that's a whole nother discussion of, I guess, quality compared to whether or not the true notion of this movie still being canon to the Justice League, um, that's a whole different thing. Like, those are two different things. So does this, the things that I guess concern people, does that make it a canon to Justice League? No, I don't think so. Now, could it still be that there's a lack of quality of a film, or I guess of how good it could have been if there weren't all these hurdles to go over and situations that polish it that they had to walk into, so to speak, right? That's a whole nother discussion, and that's one thing. And I guess we can I can understand the disappointment there. That I can understand. But to the notion of it being that means that it's canon to Justice League, I don't think that's true. um Again, those who were trying to do that are no longer there, right? um so then I'm hearing the whole like, well, what about the red and blue suit? you know the theme song, um the certain, I guess, the headless cameo in Shazam, which I get, for me it's like that's not really a fair one, because again, that was old regime. In the same version of like even the things that happened in Aquaman, that's old regime. Even to like what they did in Peacemaker, which honestly I still haven't even watched, even with the fact that I know that there's that weird cameo of Shadows and whatever the hell it was. But nonetheless, if that's your reasoning, again, you know you could only do so much, right? And now we're gonna see uh Henry Cavill Superman for certain now in Black Adam. That does still speak volumes. If you're trying to say to me, or like, and I've seen this out there, if your idea is like, well, what about Justice League, that has all these members and it was what it was, like, let's not be so foolish and ignorant to think that that actually holds merit here, right? Then I've heard, well, what about Wonder Woman 1984, right? Like, they still use Wonder Woman, and we saw what happened with that. Again, old regime, you know. But even to like point out the difference between them still using characters like Wonder Woman, Harley Quinn, that was from David Ayer Suicide Squad, or even the characters from David Ayer Suicide Squad in the Suicide Squad, um, to like even the use, still planning to go forward with Jason Momoa's Aquaman, and then even like Ezra Miller's Flash, right? Like, let's break that down right quick, because I feel like we're being disingenuous about like the truth about them existing and those projects existing, right? The fact is that they had no intentions of bringing Henry Cavill back as Superman. That's a fact. That's old regime mindset. So the fact that he is back shows that there is a new mindset. And to connect that to, well, well, because they never had the intentions of not using Wonder Woman Gal Gadot. They never had the intentions of not using Jason Momoa Aquaman. That would kind of be ludicrous, seeing that they made his film made them $1 billion. They had no intentions of not using Harley Quinn, Margot Robbie, Harley Quinn. In fact, they continue with Birds of Prey, and then using her in the Suicide Squad. Like, those notions, the fact that they wouldn't use those two characters also hold no merit, because like, why wouldn't they use them, right? They were gonna use them regardless. One, it appeases to the Hollywood agenda, right, of sticking to virtuous political stigmas of, hey, we're doing this here, we're using these characters as the protagonists of the film. They're the main leads of the film. Which not that I'm saying I have an issue with. I'm just saying I'm calling it as it is. They were always going to still use Gal Gadot Wonder Woman, apart from the fact that it was a success. It falls in line with the Hollywood agenda of virtue signaling in movies now. Same thing with Margot Robbie, Harley Quinn. Again, nothing towards her as a character, or anything of that nature, or that I have a problem with that. I'm just stating the facts. Like, the fact that regardless, David Ayer Suicide Squad was still a success, even though it's not the one we wanted, and we know there's another version out there which we should be fighting for. And again, even though I'm saying what I'm saying about Black Adam, like, this is still what it is. Make no mistake about it. And I think that's also a thing that's like, I don't get why that's an issue. If people are going to see Black Adam, they don't represent this. That's weird to me. But nonetheless, to stick to the point, my whole point is they were still going to always use these characters, regardless if they were trying to detach themselves from Zach or David Ayer and whoever else. the fact is the return of Ben Affleck and using him in a different manner, the return of Henry Cavill Superman do speak volumes because the old studio or the old execs had no intentions of bringing them back. So the fact again, them being back are not equivalent to the fact that they still used Gal Gadot Wonder Woman, who was Zack Snyder's character, or uh, um, um, Jason Momoa Aquaman, right? Or and then even like let's talk about the Flash. Like we know that the original plan with the Flash was they were gonna try and reboot everything. So like that's not a secret, but the fact that that also changed should tell you something, right? They're not trying to reboot everything to make something new, and in fact they're doing reshoots to again make it fit. Well, we all know what it is, and that's Zack Snyder's Justice League. But again, I do say like I know for a fact them doing that does make it hard to have true untainted connectivity. And if that's the issue, I can get that. I get why that's the issue, right? Because now there's a lot of the Marvel problem, right? The problem with the MCU is that they have all these things that connect, but in the same time they have all these plot holes, and that's an issue nobody really wants in their continuity of films. And I can see why that again, I can see that being the issue, but I do not get the narrative of it's one or the other, and that this means that there is no other thing, right? Um, so like again, now going back to the Superman versus Black Adam, and I guess things that The Rock was saying, the most important thing you have to cap that should have been caught from what he said was they're trying to hear the fans, right? Now let's go back to certain things that were mentioned some of the homies mentioned. They mentioned like again, uh Steppenwolf in the trailer. Okay, cool, but what did they do after the fans had an uproar about it? They changed it, right? Um, they clearly are trying to do their best to hear the fans. I mean, and like even again the poster things. I get these little things. I think this is also the thing too that drives us crazy, or not crazy. No offense by that, but what drives us, I guess, to think a certain way, and that's that. Unfortunately, we were blessed, and blessed so much that I guess we were spoiled to have a director like Zack Snyder do things the way he does things, where everything matters to him, and everything that's out there means something more, and there's deeper connective messaging and things of that nature. Unfortunately, I don't think every director thinks the way he does. And so like there are notions of things that are happening that I think, you know, yeah, Zack Snyder would think twice about doing things like that, right? Like the Superman poster, the Flash post, like things like that. He would think twice about doing it because for him, everything has to be perfect. And he needs he but again, that's Zack Snyder. I don't know if that's every director that's going to be working for DC or for WBD, right? So again, I'm not so sure these other things that are being said. I don't connect that to that meaning that Zack Snyder's Justice League is not canon and that they have no intentions of bringing Zack back. I don't put those two. I don't understand that narrative. I can't put that together. Again, if the argument is just the quality of how things could have been to what they are going to be, yeah, the unfortunate truth is that, right? It's never going to be as good as what it could have been had the original regime never faltered and kept to the plan. That's just a fact. Now, let's just say these films that might all come out before we ever get to see Zack Snyder's Justice League Part 2 and 3. Does that mean that that's going to make it harder for Zack Snyder to do his that I heard and seen somewhere, and I don't see how that you can even think that. We're talking about the same director who, when it came to Batman vs Superman, we know that the studio even meddled with that, and that is by far the best masterpiece of a comic book movie film, or probably just film, period. And he still delivered with the meddling of the studio. So the fact that there's going to be all these different movies coming out before he can actually touch on something of his own, that's going to falter his ability to finish his work, nonsense to me, to be honest. In fact, I think it's only oops, sorry. I think it's only gonna make him have more to work with, deliver something even grander than we could have. And in the end of the day, he doesn't even have to use anything else that comes out. He doesn't have to use Black Adam if he doesn't want to. He doesn't have to use Shazam if he doesn't want to. And it would still work. It would still work. And in fact, even let's just say like Black Adam could happen after the events of Justice League. Like, so he could still technically come back, do Justice League 2 and 3, and Black Adam still might not even be on the scene. And that's still fine. Same thing even with Shazam, technically. Like Shazam, like what we saw in the Shazam movie, the fact was like the Justice League does exist, right? We know that. So that all can also still have happened after the events of Justice League 2 and 3. All these movies, like for the most part, could all have happened minus Aquaman and whatever else. But nonetheless, that doesn't even have to even be the case. It could actually be that we know for a fact he's on record saying that whatever he had originally planned, he's got something new planned. And the more he has to work with, I think the better for him, and he can probably deliver something even more grander than what we could have expected, you know. And I'm cool with that. I'm cool with anything Zach does, you know. Um, if you're not, then that's a whole nother topic. That's a whole nother discussion. Again, I'm just I'm my main thing that I'm trying to touch on and speak on is just this narrative that was pushed today that because The Rock said that Black Adam versus Superman was what he wants, what he's been trying to get to happen, that means the studio or WBD has no intentions of doing Justice League versus Darkseid. I think that's just nonsense. You know, and again, if the old execs were still there, I could see why the concern was like WB just has stupid people working there that are not willing to see the gold mine that they have of the Justice League canon, of Zack Snyder's Justice League canon. With these new heads, with moves that have been made and the things that we've been seeing, to me, it shows that they're just doing the best they can with what they have, with what's already in motion. But only a fool, and I don't think they're to this point, they haven't shown me that they're complete fools enough to say we're not going to continue what we saw in Zack Snyder's Justice League. That's a fool's errand. Like that, I don't think they're gonna be that foolish. I think with the fact that they're bringing Ben Affleck back to do all these projects, I think speaks that they probably do want him to come back to do whether it's his own film or whatever it is to introduce Deathstroke, to do his thing. You know, I think what we should be fighting for most right now, for sure, is the release of the Air Cut. You know, um, and so we can finally get David Ayer's true vision to the Suicide Squad. And if it's that it's going to even be a different title, I'm for all that. You know what I'm saying? But to think that this is like not a go just because of The Rock, what The Rock said, you know, like I think you're overreacting to it. In the same way that I feel a lot of people overreacted to even to that trailer. But nonetheless, people did, and nonetheless, they responded and they changed it. That speaks volumes, and that should speak volumes to you. And what you should have captured most from what The Rock said was that they're going to listen to the fans, um, instead of like, these things that you're focusing on that honestly actually still do make sense, right? Like my homie did talk about the homie talked about like what does it mean, you know, that he's saying that the Black Adam is the most powerful man on the planet, and that the most powerful man in the universe is on the sideline, like because and that he feels that goes against the narrative, which or I guess the canon of what Zach stated, right? Uh, but you're looking at it from just one lens, which is just a shocker to me because considering the complexity of lenses of perspectives in Man of Steel to BVS to Zack Snyder's Justice League, and that's that there's the perspective of Superman, the perspective of Lois, the perspective of the world, the perspective of the government, that all look at Superman from different lenses. So this idea that Black Adam views uh, Superman as an alien is incohesive to the canon of Zack Snyder's story arc is not true. Because in Man of Steel itself, that was the premise of the movie, is that people viewed him as an alien. And even then, the following movie he came out with, that Batman versus Superman, that was the whole struggle of Bruce Wayne. He doesn't view Superman as a person of this world. Neither did Lex Luthor. Neither did the government. So even for Amanda Waller and David or Suicide Squad, right? Like that was still the true notion, is that she didn't trust Superman either. Or the idea of what happened, like the aliens coming from, and then the bigger picture, right? Like there's also people like Superman, right? Like the metathesis project or whatever it was called, the metahuman thesis, whatever, right? Which the groundwork was laid in BVS, further touched upon in Suicide Squad. Again, not everybody viewed Superman from Earth. They all viewed him like, for the most part, the majority viewed him as an alien. And actually, if we're gonna get even more technical with it, when you see Zack Snyder's Justice League, I feel it's him embracing more the fact that he is Kryptonian, you know. So while still holding true to Earth, right? Like, and that's the double dialogue between his father, like, both of his fathers, right? In the Flight 2.0. So again, I don't understand how that was a concern of thinking like, oh, the narrative is that with what he's saying, it's not canon, or it doesn't fall in line with Zack Snyder's approach on it. Like it does actually, it does in a bigger way than what you're making it to seem, or what you think it is. Not making it seem to be, but I guess what your opinion or what your thought was on that. But so yeah, to me that still doesn't take away. In fact, it actually falls in line more. Uh, and then probably and that's actually just giving you like a deep philosophical or deeper version of what actually might have just been the more simple thing to why he said what he said, and that's that The Rock is a fan pleaser. So probably in his mind, when he said it, he was just thinking, if I say this, this is me bowing down to the fact that Superman is the most powerful being in the entire universe. You know what I mean? Like, if that, or maybe he's even referring to Darkseid. You know, maybe he's even just referring to Darkseid, and that's what it is. You feel me? Like that he's referring to the most powerful being in the universe. You know what I'm saying? Like whatever, who knows? Like, and that's again thinking deep, but to the most simplest thing, just knowing The Rock and Dwayne Johnson, how he is with, how he, for him, it was probably just him thinking, if I say Superman's the most powerful man in the universe, that's me making sure that I'm telling the fans, yes, I know Superman is a beloved character. He is the most, you know what I'm saying? Like that could have just been as simple as that, rather than, I don't know, this idea that he's trying to disregard the fact that, Man of Steel places, um, Superman as this boy from Kansas, and he's about as American as it gets. No, that doesn't change from that. It doesn't even affect that, because again, that is Superman's answer to the lens and the perspective of the government viewing him as a threat from outer space. And then again, BVS follows that same narrative. So like again, I don't get why that was a concern. Um, you know, so that's my thing on this. That's that whole narrative today. I found it so weird. I just don't have another word for it. Just weird. It just doesn't make sense to me. Again, like every concern that was brought to make that make sense, I felt like is a whole different discussion. And I feel like that touches more just on the quality of storytelling, that yeah, to the point, is going to be like uh you know lacks, I guess, true storytelling, or to the best of its capability, right? And but again, I think that also just falls more in line with, they're just working with what they have, the best that they have to work with, for me. Especially again, when I said everything else that I mentioned, everything that, just when you're looking at every move that they've made following the booting of all these execs, proves that they, to me, again, and then again, none of this is really official, but what we can officially say are the things that have already been said, like David Zaslav saying that he has his yo, what's up, homie? Like David Zaslav saying he has his eyes on the Trinity, that's what he wants to focus on. Which, we can all admit, the old regime, the old execs, had no intentions of doing that. They clearly do, right? Certain films that have no connection to Zack Snyder's Justice League canon, are being shelved, right? Um, and now for sure, confirmed cameo of trying to bring of them bringing Henry Cavill back. Which only like if you're not going to bring him back to do more films, what does that you know what I'm saying? So like whether that's another Man of Steel movie or like another solo Superman movie, or also could just be hinting on that, yeah, they have every intention of bringing Zach back to finish the story arc. Like all that means something. And again, the last thing that I want to reiterate is he said they're listening to the fans. That's going to be the new format of success for this new DC. And again, him saying that isn't him trying to obliterate what came beforehand, like as far as like Man of Steel, BVS, just Zack Snyder's Justice League, David. What he's saying is I guess between him, his team, and maybe even the new execs, they can all acknowledge that the past execs and whoever was in charge was doing a poor job of giving the fans what they wanted, or for sure from like a sincere place, you know. That's my opinion on this. So just for anybody who I guess feels that was the case, I prove me otherwise. Again, DM me if you want to. Like, I don't mind talking about this with you guys. For me, this is a better way. I hate going back and forth on Twitter with a certain amount of characters to a limited amount of characters. So if this is the way we got to do it, let me know. Again, I don't mind talking about it with you guys. I have nothing but respect for you guys. So just let me know exactly what you think. For me, I feel I've given you all my points up till now, at least with everything that I've seen and why the discussion was brought up. I don't think it holds any merit to push this narrative that Superman versus Black Adam being a thing that they're. And then here's the other thing we have to keep in mind: this isn't what we're getting in the Black Adam film. These are future plans. Who is to say that this is a plan that comes after Zack Snyder's Justice League 2 and 3? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, this just means that this is a future plan they have in mind. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to do that before Justice League versus Darkseid. It doesn't mean that at all. It could. And again, I don't think it hurts Zack Snyder's capability and ability to finish off his story arc. I don't think so at all. I think that's actually undermining the genius and capability of Zack Snyder, so that's all I have to say about it. I know my homie is about to go live with his show. I'm hoping to catch it. But again, for you guys who I was going back and forth on Twitter, the homie Lex, Prakash, or anybody else, honestly, DM me, man. Like, honestly, I don't mind talking to you guys about this stuff. Maybe you have more to say. Maybe there's a side to your viewpoint that I'm not catching, but DM me, let me know. Like we can definitely chop it up about this. This is what the Chop Shop is for. It's for us to discuss these things, open discussion, free thinking opinions and what have you. And, hopefully we can figure things out together and go forward. JP, the homie, what's going on, Vega? What up, boss? I feel what you're saying. I just want WBD to acknowledge Ray and Zach and separate themselves from the old W. And again, I feel that. I feel what you're saying there. I feel like they're taking steps towards that. Granted, for sure. I know that I know it's like, all right, we got Ben Affleck, we got Henry Cavill, reshoots happening here and there. The one thing, we probably for sure need to would probably be better. Or not better, but the one thing I feel like for sure, like that we can get before the Zach confirmation is a Ray confirmation. Like, and maybe I haven't seen this somewhere. If Ray Fisher is back for the Flash, that I think would probably bring more rest to this idea that they still don't. Again, which I can't understand fully why that's not a thing, but yeah. I feel you on that. Like if Ray Fisher's confirmed, maybe that gives more peace. Like, okay, Ray Fisher's not back. And again, I don't know. Maybe it's already out there, and I just haven't seen it. But yeah, I could see that being a thing. Again, the homie still mentioned this yesterday. You can't expect him to say anything with Zach just yet because the reality is he's got other contracts to fulfill with Netflix still. So like you don't want to talk about things too far ahead in advance. I think that's just personally, that is bad business, especially when and I think the other part we have to keep in mind is that in this business, there is still a competition between DC and the MCU. You can't show your hand, and I think it would be foolish for them to show their hand. I think as much as we would want rest and ease of knowing that yes, they have they confirming Zach is back for sure officially. I think like no, they have to keep the opponent guessing just as much as they have us guessing. But I feel like they're giving us enough nuggets to keep us at peace or at bay with like, okay, hold on, you're making moves here, you know. Let's not get weary just yet, But yeah, I feel like if they at least mention the Ray thing, like, hey, he's gonna be back in the Flash, I feel like that would hopefully give people more rest. And again, as far as like all these other things that I know there are going to be just very loose things that are going to not make sense because of what already came, but you got to work with what you got at that point. And again, I stand on the fact that Zach is a very unique director that really thinks about everything when it comes to how he makes a film and everything that connects, and even how he promotes things. And the reality is not every director or every team, because remember, Zach has his own team too that thinks like him or that works with him well. Unfortunately, not every team or every director like doesn't think and doesn't work the same way. And I think that's something we have to like kind of just realize, and not let that let that be a reason for us to be, I don't know, dismayed, or again, more so just again, for me, it was more that just that narrative that it was like, it's not necessarily that you can't be concerned, be concerned if you want, and I think in the end of the day, let's keep fighting for this for sure, or keep promoting it. You know what I mean? Let's just keep promoting it to let it be known that this is still what we want in the end of the day. And that everything that you do going forward, we hope it somehow in one way, shape, or form acknowledges and can connect to this, one way or another, or not, maybe, who cares? But like, it looks like they do want to do that so far. With the exception, again, like some things are going to be loosely connected. And I think that's just something we'll have to embrace, because the unfortunate reality is that there was an old regime that existed before this new team, but again, that's my 2 cents on the matter. I wasn't trying to stay on too long. Maybe we can do this again. And again, anybody who wants to chop it up with me on these things, DM me. I'm more than like, I want to have conversations about this. More again, leave your thoughts in the comment section if you'd like, and let me know your thoughts. This is just my way of addressing these things, because again, I really don't have time to go back and forth on Twitter with the, what I'm saying. And one can argue, well, you have 40 minutes to go live. I'll be honest, I didn't have the intention of doing this, but this is why I went live, though, because my mind in itself, when I try and talk and explain things, I go in so many ways, and that's what makes it even such a slower process for me to type, because in the same way that I talk is the same way that I obviously think, so this for me is like, I'm speaking as I think, and it's coming out, and either you hate it or love it, but it is what it is. But for those who tuned in, for those in the comment section, again, JP, Pinpoint, I don't know if anybody else responded. I see Edwin. Hey, it is what it is. Appreciate it. Again, appreciate y'all tuning in. Anything that you guys want to share, or your thoughts, comment, like, share, subscribe. This is what we're here for. Be blessed, y'all. Peace out, man.